Chat, there is a saying in the YouTube right-wing political sphere that when you have boring content and nothing else to do, you play Tucker Carlson videos. That's where we're going to do today.
Chat.
Like literal.
There is a saying in the
Shut up, troll. Yes, we're going to watch literal Tucker Carlson videos. And by the gods, am I not sleepy? Like, my brain is going to be on rot. But since I didn't stream yesterday, I decided to stream today anyway. I don't know what's happening. I'm incredibly tired lately, and I am getting enough sleep. It's just, I don't know, it's weird. Right. Maybe it's that time of the month, when it's just I'm constant. It's kind of like exhausted, like fatigued. Yes, fatigued is the word. You wake up, and even though you slept enough, you still feel tired. It's so annoying. Prevents you from being productive. Probably the heat. Been a little bit of drought here in Romania. I'm not on the wrong side. I'm on the right side of history. 31. I can't go to sleep, man. I need to work, and I need to thank Vincent for the generous contribution. Hold on. I noticed something interesting, but please ignore the name of this person. We do not contact the people we criticize on the internet, but this just proves what I've been saying all along. So, before we begin with the Tucker Carlson videos, there's a new stage in the MCU, and pretty much all the Avengers are being gender or race swapped because of the comic books. So in the comic books, when Avengers came out, I mean, this was the worst marketing imaginable. But you had like female Thor, you had an Asian Hulk, you had a black Captain America. So the problem was like people would go and watch the Marvel movies, which were incredibly popular at the time. It was like the height of popularity. And then they would be like, okay, well, these comic books things, like they're really interesting. Let's pick one up and see what it's about. So they would go and they would pick up comic books, and instead of finding the Avengers from the movies, like instead of finding Tony Hawk, they would find Ironheart and whatnot. Like they replaced the entire superheroes with the changing of the mantle bullshit. And those comics didn't sell because a lot of people found them to be spiteful. It's not just like you're creating a new hero, but you're removing the existent ones. So like if someone wanted to read the old Captain America or the old Tony Stark, they wouldn't be able to do it. So a lot of people found it spiteful, so they didn't get it. Now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is reaching that point. And again, like, do not contact this lady. I don't even know who she is, but it's interesting because she says, I don't know what you nerds need spelled out when it comes to who is who now in the MCU. It's very obvious. Your behavior is indicative of how purposefully ignorant you're being. Ignorant. Like, lady, it's an entertainment movie. Like, it's not basic math. It's not Shakespeare. It's not Mozart. It's like, oh, you're being ignorant about Marvel. Okay. Hashtag okay. Like, oh my god, you're being ignorant about Marvel. I just want to point out that Twitter, like, they live in, I guess, like, two universes. Marvel universe and World War II. Like, every time you talk with woke people on Twitter, they start making World War II comparisons or Marvel comparisons. And secondly, like, being called a nerd. Like, you're watching Marvel movies. Nerd. Like, I would understand if you were watching something else and you're like, oh, you're really, like, you're reading comic books? How old are you, nerd? Okay, so just say you prefer your heroes to be all white and fuck off. I love the aggressive attitude, isn't it? Like the aggressive, if you don't like the superhero, the skin color palette. Which, again, is absolutely dumb, considering that Storm is, I think she's like the perfect waifu from the X-Men, right? And she's not white. But whatever, like this is the way some people understand the world through color. Like they think they can mind read millions of people. But anyway, right? So this is like the first one. Just say you can't digest any story unless it's a white story. It's like, lady, it's written by white people, okay? Like even if you cast someone else, well, it's actually written by Jewish people. If I'm not mistaken, Stan Lee was Jewish. So, but anyway, right? It's a white story because your privileged lifestyle has made you put yourself in other people's shoes. Now here's the interesting part, right? This is why I decided to talk about it. It's because the whole ideology is centered around representation, right? So what does representation mean? It means that you need to have female superheroes so women can read comic books. It means you need to have Asian superheroes so Asians can read comic books. Like, in other words, if the character isn't the exact identity as the targeted audience, they're not going to read it. So if this is your mentality, like if this is your worldview, well, if the character isn't white, then why do you expect white people to view it? Now, I'm not saying that this is the case, but your ideology is literally stating that unless the character represents the audience, then the audience isn't interested. Like, your ideology is basically saying that people don't have empathy. I believe in relatability. Like, you can have Luke Cage, which I found a lot of relatability with that character because he grew up in a poor neighborhood, very diverse neighborhood with people from all walks of life. So I really like that TV show because it showed relatability. It's like, oh, I grew up poor, and Luke Cage is in a poor neighborhood, and I can see why people would succumb to crime in those conditions. So it was relatable. But from a representation point of view, it wouldn't make sense, right? Because I'm white. Well, he's a person of color. Like, there's no representation there. But anyway, then they say, can't acknowledge the fact that Captain America is black. Won't watch Shang-Chi or Miss Marvel because they're not white stories. Okay, just be honest about your racism. And this is the exact type of marketing that Disney is trying to foster. Like right here, right? Like, if you don't watch Disney movies, it means you're a racist. So it means that righteous people, moral people, they have to watch to stick it up to the racists. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem that they have the numbers. Because time and time again, like there have been quote-unquote progressive movies that the progressives don't want to see them. I mean, the whole go woke, go broke thing, It's like, the woke don't go to see woke movies. I mean, they make a big talk on Twitter. They end up winning various prizes in the New York Times, but they don't get butts in seats. You forgot the Harry Potter comparisons? No, I haven't. They don't make Harry Potter comparisons anymore. Ever since J.K. Rowling has become evil, she has turned to the dark side. Twitter is not making Harry Potter comparisons. I noticed this. I mean, maybe you can find a couple. I don't know. Like, maybe there are a couple of people on Twitter that would still make Harry Potter comparisons. But no, it's like usually Marvel comparisons. I seen a couple of The Boys comparisons. It's like Elon Musk is like the Homelander. This was like a big brain take. You would think they would compare him with Edgar because he was like the CEO of what? That would have been a lot more accurate. Handmaid's Tale. Yes, another one that's very fascinating. Again, there are women that don't have the same rights as men in certain places of Africa, Middle East. Like, you could actually pick real life examples, but they choose to go with fiction. And I think that this is the way some people experience the world, from the comfort of their bedroom, watching fictional stories. And this is why the left is so keen on gatekeeping entertainment, because they know that this is how the masses understand the world, through fiction. It's kind of sad. By the way, one more thing before we go to the Tucker Carlson videos. But I just realized that certain things are incredibly evil, but at the same time they're not illegal. So technically, you can do these things, which are morally reprehensible, but they're legal. And you probably wouldn't get canceled for it. So, do you guys know that there are certain places in the world where there are still tribes of undiscovered humans? I mean, we call them undiscovered because they don't really interact with civilization. So what if you were to take a couple of drones and you can scare the living shit out of uncontacted tribes? Like you can, with enough drones, you can actually do various images. and like, can you even imagine, like, how would like you have a tribe of people that never interacted with anyone outside their tribe ever. Like, they don't even understand what technology is. Like, you get to see these videos on Discovery where, you know, they finally go, like, the researchers go and they talk with people from uncontacted tribes, and you know, they show them a lighter and they're just utterly baffled by the technology. You know, they show them a smartphone and they think that the person is a deity, that they're casting magic. Like, imagine if you actually went with drones and did a light show on the sky, so that the particular tribe gets to see. It would be so funny. Like, you put it there, you know, and you come back in 2 years and you see them, like, having drawings of what you put up on the sky. Like imagine this, okay? You put Uzaki-chan. Like, you have drones and you make a Uzaki-chan on the sky. You know, a big booby Uzaki-chan. And then you come back 2 years later and you see them worshipping statues of Uzaki-chan and, like, drawings of Uzaki-chan, like, praying to... Why am I so evil? Why am I so goddamn evil? Again, it's legal. I don't think you'd get canceled for it. Like, I don't think it's even politically incorrect. You could like have an Uzaki-chan and a ooh. A ooh underneath, and you see them worshipping the ooh symbol into... God. Oh, why am I evil, chat? Why do I think about these things? Like, who on earth would even think about something like this? You need to know their language as well, so you can tell them in their apocalypse in a booming voice. No, like, you wouldn't need to do that. Like, just think about it, right? Like, imagine traveling back in time to even before medieval Europe. Like, you're traveling back in time to the Roman Empire, and you have all the technology available today, and you manage to put Uzaki-chan in the sky using drones in the middle of the night. I mean, you would mindfuck these people. Like the Romans would just think... I don't even know what they would think. But clearly they would think it's some divine thing. Like, they would think it's a goddess or some shit. I guarantee to you they would start worshipping her. Like, they would probably think, oh my god, it's Aphrodite's. Pretty sure it is illegal to contact tribes. Yeah, but, like, you're not contacting them, right? You're putting the drones in the sky. I mean, no, think about it. Like, so you're not meeting the tribes. Like, you're not going there talking to them. Like, all you have to do is to put the drones in the night sky, and they can be seen for hundreds, if not more. You know, like hundreds of miles, probably more. Like, if it's a night sky, like, people will see it from all over. Yeah, well, they did think that Spanish were gods, but... How dare you groom them, V? Oh, I see. You wouldn't have any bloody signal on Roman time? You wouldn't, yes. Okay, let's watch the Tucker Carlson videos. Enough chit-chat. Give me a second so I can open. Do. Ah, here we go. Managed to find it. No, I didn't find it. Well, hold on, chat. Give me a second. This is a little bit awkward. This never happened before. Okay, like it never happened before. I usually have all the material at hand. I have no idea why. Ah, here we go. I found it. It's on the Twitter. 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Okay. Let me see if I can bring the chat next to me as well. So I need the chat. Without the chat, I feel lost. Just justifiably stupid. V makes jokes about lights in the sky. Little does he know that time travelers already did it. This is how we got astrology. Oh my god. Don't even get me started with astrology. Holy shit. Why is it a woman only thing? Like, here's the thing. I don't believe that there is a single man on earth. Not one. Not a single one. Like, I would be willing to entertain the notion. Like, if you show me one man that likes astrology. I like, even transgender people who are women and then become men, they stop believing in astrology. I guarantee to you this. Like, this is the litmus test. You know, fuck the chromosomes. Fuck all that shit. Whether or not the person believes in astrology is literally the definition between a man and a woman. And then there's people pretending to be into astrology. Those are the men that try to impress a ushkushi lady. But, like, that's pretty much it. All right. Anyway. Pa-pam. There is none. My ex was into astrology. Well, now I know why he was an ex. But are you sure you weren't a lesbian, Smell of Logic? I mean, it's 2022. You can come out of the closet. Okay, we're all inclusive here. This is a safe space. I genuinely... No, seriously, I do not fucking understand. How on earth can people believe in that shit? Like, first of all, why the fuck would the planet influence you in any way, shape, or form? Secondly, they like people know, like, this is common knowledge that when you hear your horoscope on the radio or on TV or on the internet, like, they don't actually study shit. They just pull things out of their ass. Like people who have a radio show. Stick Saxon Hammer 666 believes. Get the fuck out, he doesn't. I don't believe he believes. But, like, you can find out, you know, like the one was like, oh, well, if you're a Pisces, today you're going to have a really great day at work, and it's a really great opportunity for a romantic relationship. They are pulling that out of their ass. Like, no one is studying the movement of the planets. Okay? And secondly, I'm really curious. Let's say we colonize Mars. Let's assume we colonize Mars. Do you honestly believe that those people are going to have, like, different astrology? Like are they going to have to rediscover knowledge about astrology? Because, like, if you're on another planet, then clearly all the gravitation just differs, right? And now you have like Earth orbiting Saturn and shit. Well, isn't horoscope shit connected to astrology? Gotta think like more psychological framework. Oh, I don't know. Anyway. Let's watch this. I haven't seen it. I'm watching it with you for the first time, chat.
Closet.
And Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm glad you agreed to join us.
Someone just texted me and said you were pretty tough with Taylor Lorenz, which I was heartened to hear, but it's...
So Taylor Lorenz is that lady which doxed libs of TikTok and then harassed their family. Now, why this is even more interesting is that Taylor Lorenz actually had an entire article saying how difficult it is to be a woman online, that you constantly get harassed, and then she goes and harasses another woman. Now, I gotta give props to her. I suppose this is how you point out that your article isn't lying. I mean, she did say that women are getting harassed online. She didn't say by whom. Right, so she can do the harassment in order to make her article gain more weight, I suppose. But that's what Taylor Lorenz is. So this is who we're talking about.
It's easy to hurt her feelings. So I hope you'll check your privilege.
I'm just hoping you'll let me ask questions and not steamroll me, because you're a professional and I'm not.
Well, you're the top one, Ben.
But I have been watching your show a lot, and you spend a lot of time laughing about labels that are thrown at you. Racist, white supremacist, the most host of the most racist show in the history of cable television. Actually, I'd rather...
Can you believe this? Right, like, Tucker Carlson is the most racist show on cable television history, right? I mean, I can show you some segments from Memory TV that even if Tucker Carlson were a racist, like, even if, I can show you just a couple of clips from Memory TV that would make Tucker Carlson look like he's in the little leagues. It's a silly documentary, Zeitgeist, but it had one good segment about how many religions on different continents are based on same astrology memes. Oh, well, I don't know about that. I don't even think it's possible, but like there are how many astrology signs are there versus how many religions? I mean, there are thousands of religions. Even if you just take Christianity and you look at all the different denominations, you go into the thousands. You're saying when women transit... No, I didn't say that. He said it in his twist stream. He's an occultist. Oh, well, I wish I can have a debate with Sticks. I'll get him off the astrology train right away. But anyway, right, this is where this is getting interesting.
I'd rather not ask you about the labels, but sort of give you an opportunity to talk about what you believe. And to begin with, do you believe white people are superior to other races?
No, of course not. And the funny thing is, that's one of those... Let me...
Okay, so when you see this happening, right? Like when you ask when the reporter asks a question, and after like a couple of seconds they're interrupting, they're not being honest. And I'll tell you why. Like, you have time to prepare the questions. So there is no way, like, the only reason you would interrupt someone 2 seconds after asking a question is if you didn't phrase the question correctly. So you want to rephrase it. This guy had time to prepare. I mean, you're interviewing Tucker Carlson, right? So the only way you would interrupt him is like you're not interested in what he has to say. You're interested in painting him in a specific way to your audience. So this is not really an interview. This is a hit piece.
Let me just stop on the yes/no question there, and just to put it a little differently before you respond, which is,
do you think
that white people have more of a claim on America?
Superior in any way.
Do you think that white people have some claim on America that people of other races don't?
Of course not. I mean, first of all, I'm a Christian, so I think God made everybody, and therefore everyone has equal value.
Look how angry he is based on the response he is getting. Like, he was hoping that Tucker Carlson would like, oh yeah, absolutely. But because he's not getting that correct response, look how upset he is, right? Like, why would you be upset if it's just an interview? Like, you're just supposed to ask questions and allow the audience to decide? But he's not going to do that.
Value in his eyes. That's the essential value of every person is the same. But the idea that I harbor some sort of deep racial animus is like, I mean, I think there are a lot of criticisms you could level at me. I think sometimes I overstate the case, I get pissed, I can be very nasty. You've been on the receiving end of that. I know you can vouch for that. But the idea that if you were to look at my texts or listen to my personal conversations or read my mind, you would find no instance where I'm like, I'm mad at black people. 100% of the people that I'm mad at are well-educated white liberals.
It's kind of interesting because there are people on the identitarian right who are upset that Tucker Carlson isn't a racist. And there are people on the far left that consider Tucker Carlson a racist. Like, there are people on the far right that are upset that he's a civic nationalist, right? Like, he believes that if you have American citizenship, then that is the only difference that you can make with people who don't have American citizenship. But skin color doesn't factor into that. And there are people who don't like Tucker Carlson because of this.
In my mind, the sort of archetype of the person I don't like is like a 38-year-old female white lawyer with a barren personal life. That's who yells at me on airplanes. And so I always say to people like, you're racist.
Okay, let me
Actually, I'm not mad at black people. Like, what are you talking about?
Let me show you, I think, why people react this way. I think we have a clip I just wanted to show you.
Uh-oh. We live in the age of TikTok, right? Where a 10 seconds clip can make or ruin a career. And the moment the clip appears, like the soundbite appears, you lost. It doesn't matter. Like, the moment you start talking about context or anything like that, you lost. And this is a very useful tool into the arms of the censors. Like, if you have, let's say, 10 years of footage, like Joe Rogan, okay? Joe Rogan has, I think, months of footage. Like, if you were to have all of the things that Joe Rogan did online, and you put them back to back, and you click the play button, it would probably take months until you reach the end. But because, like, someone managed to get a couple of sound bites of him using the N-word, within a context, by the way, that made sense. Like, he would usually say, it's like, well, this person said it, and this is what happened, right? It doesn't matter. Like, the moment you start talking about context, you lost. That's how powerful the TikTok era is. It's like the 10 seconds of soundbite that can destroy a career. So basically, like, this guy says, oh, well, I have a clip. I don't think there is a single person alive on Earth that hasn't said something racist at one point or another, but that doesn't mean that he is racist. This is another American thing. Like, this is something that I noticed from evangelists, right? And I don't think it exists in Orthodoxy or Catholicism, but evangelists would say, have you ever said a lie? And if the answer is yes, like if you said one lie, you're a liar. And I think there is a problem with the logic of this. I don't think like a person who says one lie is a liar. I think you need to lie consistently to be called a liar. Because if that's the case, if a person said a lie once and he's a liar, then a person who said the truth once should also be a truth teller. Like if a person says 99% of lies, but one time he says the truth, then why can't he be a truth teller? Like why doesn't the other way work around? Right? So if a person who's always racist would have a clip where he is not racist, why can't we assume, based on the 10-second clip, that, well, he's not a racist? Right? Like this is, I think, a particularity to American culture, from my observation, which stems from the way Americans interpret religion that is really ingrained within American thinking. Like if you stole once, then you're a thief, right? And I think like this goes on the argument that if you murder once, you're a murderer. But I guess like that's due to the severity of the crime, right? Like being a murderer is something so extreme that yes, it only takes once so you become a murderer. But with other less extreme things like stealing, like let's say you stole a pen or you stole a piece of paper, you know, like you're at an exam and you don't have anything to write and there's a paper next to you that's not yours and you take it. And you're like, okay, fine, I'll deal with it when the owner comes. I'll apologize, I'll whatever. What did Marilyn say that is excellent? I need to... it's looking for sin, no matter how minor, and then judging you that to break you down socially, bringing you into the flock and rebuild you in their image. Yeah, pretty much. But like, I think evangelists were the ones that perfected this method, right? So like, they would point out that you are such an evil sinner, but by finding one instance of sin, by saying like, okay, you sinned once and therefore you're a sinner, and the only way you can receive salvation is to join the church and donate to the church and yeah, like still once a thief. See, I don't believe that. Like, it depends what you stole, you know, how big the theft was. Like I don't believe that if a person stole a pencil, he is a thief. Because by the same logic, if a person would constantly steal, like let's say he is a thief, right? Like he steals everything. He's a kleptomaniac. But one single instance, he gives the thing back, then you wouldn't classify that person as someone who returns the goods that he finds. Right? Like I think two things matter. Number one, how often it happens. And number two, the severity of what we're talking about. Because obviously, if a person steals $1 million, then he is a thief. But if a person steals 50 cents once, I wouldn't call that person a thief. Because he doesn't do it consistently. You know, it doesn't... It's the same thing like lying. If he lied once or twice, but he says the truth on a consistent basis, I think he's a truth teller. Even if, right? Because the opposite would also have to make sense. Like if a person lies constantly and says the truth once, that doesn't make him a truth teller. What if the person constantly steals all your pencils? Then he is a thief. But he would have to do it constantly. If you commit a crime once, you're a criminal. Yeah, that's the American thinking. I don't believe that. I don't think if you jaywalk once, you're a criminal. It depends on the severity of the crime. If you mug once, yes, you're a mugger. But if you got in a bar fight once, I don't think you're a thug. It depends on the crime and the consistency. But Americans, yes, Americans believe that if you do a crime, you're a criminal. And I just disagree with that assessment. Because by the opposite definition, if you abide the law once, then you're a law-abiding citizen. I mean, you're a criminal non-stop. Like, you do 99% of the time, you just do crimes left and right. But once, you abide the law. So by this logic, you should also be a law-abiding citizen. Steal once, you're a thief. Okay, give to charity once, then you're a charitable person. Like, you can be Scrooge McDuck, but you gave to charity once, so you're a charitable individual. Like, why doesn't it work the other way around? Why doesn't the logic follow both ways? Why is it like if a person does a bad thing once, then he is a bad person? But if a person does a good thing once, then he is not a good person. Do you see how ridiculous the standard is? Like, I wouldn't consider a person who does one good deed in their entire life to be a good person. But by the logic of Americans, if a person does one bad thing once, and like he's Mother Teresa the rest of the time, well, then he's a bad person. There's no reward for abiding the law. There are only punishments for breaking it. Bullshit. You can get the key to the city. Like, you can do certain things that go way and above abiding the law. Like, for example, You can return a wallet that you found. You're going to get praise for that. You can help an old lady across the street. You can save someone from drowning. You can save a baby from a burning building. And again, like, it depends on what you're doing. Like, if you, let's say the person in front of you drops a nickel, right, by accident. You're picking it up and it's like, hey, mister, you dropped the nickel, right? And you return it. No one is going to consider you a hero. Like, no one is going to admire what you did. But imagine you find a suitcase with $1 million and you return it. Well, now you're going to be on the news. Because it's the same thing, right? Like, it's the impact of the act is how the grandiose, I guess, like how grandiose the charity that you have done is. Crab in the bucket, you're as sinful as we are. No, it's the American mentality. Like, I see people in the chat, and I don't blame them. Like, if you were raised with this mentality, you're going to think it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense logically. Like, from a logical standpoint, I don't think it makes sense. If a person does one sin, I don't think that makes them a sinner. Just the same way that if a person does one act of charity, it doesn't make them a charitable person.
Sydney, can you play that?
In political terms, this policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries.
So Tucker, what's a legacy American?
So, the way democracy used to work is that if you don't like your leaders, you can vote them out. So you can replace the leaders that you don't like. But what if the leaders bring in outside voters to replace the electorate? Because the thing is, like, when you bring, like, let's say you have a really bad leader that causes economic downturn, and he brings in a lot of immigrants, tries to give them citizenship. Now, those people don't know that those leaders have caused economic downturn, so they might vote for the guy that gave them citizenship. I mean, isn't this something worth discussing? Well, no, apparently it's racist. But, like, even if it's the same race, like, even if you're bringing, like, for example, you're bringing Moldavians into Romania. Same ethnicity, same, very similar culture. But just because you're bringing people from the outside, you're, like, a better example. Let's say you have a company, right? And you're all of a sudden issuing more stocks. Like, you're creating more stocks and you're diluting the voting power of the current shareholders. Like, the current shareholders might not be happy if you do that. The moment you start creating, in fact, it's illegal in some cases, right? Like, you don't like the way the current board votes. You don't like the way the current shareholders vote. So you start creating new shares on the market so that other people buy in, and in a hope that the voting goes in a different way. This happens at companies, by the way, and sometimes it ends up with lawsuits. Moldavians are not Romanians. Interesting take for somebody Dash. There's a lot of ethnic Russians in Moldavia. I mean, once Moldavia was taken by the Soviet Union, by Stalin, he deported a lot of Moldavians and sent them to Siberia and imported a lot of Russians in return. Which is why Moldavia, unlike Romania, voted for a communist party. Moldavia was the only country in Europe which had a communist party that they voted for. So, yeah, there is cultural differences. And there are ethnical differences as well, because, like, you have Russians. Fight me on this one. Like, I can show you the stats if you want. Like, we can talk statistics. We can, yeah, there are also ethnic Romanians there, the original Moldavian people, but ethnically speaking, there have been a lot of, and as you can see, based on this, it influences the way they vote. talking about this now in Moldova, it was Stalin that actually moved people from one place to another, right? Like they took the Moldavians, moved them to Siberia, took Russians, put them in Moldavia, and the way that the nation started voting was changed significantly. Well, Fallen Shadow, am I wrong? I mean, you're from Chisinau. Am I saying things that don't make sense? Am I being misinformed? Am I spreading fake news? Because I don't think so. I think I'm making sense. Transnistria soon to be Russia. It would be interesting if Ukraine were to take Transnistria. With Moldavia's approval, of course. Anyway, right. I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about
people who were born here, black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, people who are citizens, people who participated, generationally in our system. And a lot of them don't buy the program of the modern Democratic Party because it doesn't serve them. And so the center of the Democratic electoral strategy going forward, I'm not guessing, they talk about it constantly, you're a journalist, you must have noticed, is to bring in new people who will vote for them. Now that,
do you think,
let me just finish if you don't mind. This is not something that I made up or found on the internet. I don't even really go on the internet. This is something that Democrats, including, the architect of Obama's last victory.
Look how nervous he is. Okay, look how nervous he is because, again, he didn't expect this answer. And he is absolutely furious because he didn't get the gotcha. Like, this is what's happening here. This is like the gotcha moment. Like, he is hoping to get that 5 or 10 seconds of sound clip to paint Tucker Carlson as a racist, and he's not getting it, so he's so angry, he's like wiggling the paper. I think that he is in a lot of trouble for doing an interview with Tucker Carlson from his voting base. From his listener base. Like, his listener base don't like that he's giving Tucker Carlson a platform. So he's hoping for the gotcha to be able to justify why he gave Tucker Carlson a platform, but he's not getting the gotcha.
Victory have talked about at great lengths in pieces, monographs on television. They've written books about it. So this is not like some crackpot Alex Jones.
Do you think when you talk about
this is the central strategy of the Democratic Party? So to be like, I can't believe you said that. I'm putting it back to that.
You talked about generational investment. How many generations makes you a legacy American?
I'm just saying people who live here now, including immigrants.
Do you have any empathy? Do you have any empathy for somebody who sees that clip, somebody who's whose parents are from India, from China, who are Jewish, and say, "Wow, I don't think I just see that clip, and I don't really think this guy includes me in his vision of America."
Slow down. Okay. No, I don't have any, as you said, empathy for people.
Do you understand why they might think that?
Please let me, if you don't mind, if I could finish. I have no empathy for people who derive their judgments about anything from 30-second clips on Media Matters. I do an hour live every single night. If you want to know what I think, I don't know that there's anyone who's more transparent.
See, this is a very good comeback because, as I mentioned before, we live into the TikTok era, right? Where 20 seconds clip on Media Matters, and that's pretty much what Tucker Carlson is. I don't think that if we were to make a social experiment, when I got a person to talk for 20 seconds, you would be able to know the type of individual and understand his mindset. I can give you like 20-second speeches of Adolf Hitler, where he talks about veganism or where he talks about environmentalism, and you would say that it's probably Hillary Clinton. You're not able to just pinpoint a person's personality from a one-off, thing. Like, and again, like, it only works with negative things, right? Like, if you were to do the opposite, like if you have a very racist person, but like you show a clip where for 20 seconds he wasn't, like, no one is going to say, oh, well, like this clip clearly proves that he's not a racist. I mean, look. But for some reason, people do not use logic anymore. Like, this is clearly a logical fallacy that is very popular. And it's unfortunate, but I love the fact how Tucker Carlson managed to debunk it. It's like, well, I stream for 1 hour every night, and if you want to see how I think, you have to watch that. You can't just watch 20 seconds of it. That's brilliant. It's a really good takedown.
About it than I am. Not all of my views are correct. Not all of them are attractive. You may laugh at some of them. You may be offended by others, but I'm very clear about what I think.
Look at what he's doing with the paper. You can see how angry he is because he can't just pin him down. Like, you can see how upset. Like, why are you so upset? Why are you so upset? If he was just a journalist, all he has to do is ask questions, let the man speak, and you get money from views. Like, you get money from ratings, right? I mean, you have Tucker Carlson on. He's the most popular guy on cable. Why are you angry? Why are you so nervous? You let the man talk, flap his mouth. You do the check-ching. You made the money. You did your... Because he's not in the business of making money. He's in the business of influencing people. Well, I can see why you're angry. Because now all of the people that are watching it, all of the leftists that are watching this, some of them, probably not a lot, but like if 5% of them go like, oh, well, you know, like this Tucker guy. Like I heard so many bad things about him, but he sounds very reasonable. This is what they fear the most. And by they, I mean the opposite political ideology. The concept that, oh, well, shit, like someone might listen to this and they might actually realize that, hold on a little bit, like, you know, all these right-wingers, they're actually able to form coherent arguments. And I thought this is a racist, but like he says that he doesn't hate black people and he considers black people to be Americans. And I was told the opposite.
I believe that people are not the sum total of their genetics. I say that constantly, and as a Christian, I really mean it. I actually buy the kind of Dr. Seuss, please, version of race understanding, which is judge a person by what he does, not by how he looks. I actually believe that.
I love the fact that he ignores some of the catchphrases that the left has turned into dog whistles. So if you are to say that I'm colorblind, okay, they actually call that colorblind racism. So he avoids using that. Like, I treat all people the same or blah, blah, blah. And he uses the Dr. Seuss metaphor. And he completely bypasses, you know, the... Because I see like a lot of left-wing activists that are like trained. They have certain triggers. Like when they hear that thing, they shut down automatically. Like they shut down as in they don't listen to you anymore. They stop. They go la 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 la. So if you use the word like for example, you people, right? Like for some reason, if you use you people, that's racist. But if you say those people, that's fine. I don't get it. I don't. It is so bizarre. Or if you say our people, that's also fine. But if you say you people, that's not fine. So if you say like those people over there, you know, like it's so fucking bizarre. And again, like it's only in the English language. It matters of context, right? Like context is very important. Like what do you mean by you people? Like if I say you people as in you people in the chat, why is that a problem? Right? Like if I say you people as in you in the chat, oh, it's a problem. But if I say chat, then that's fine. Same with the people of color and colored people. Like you can see just how much the energy has been invested into weaponizing the American language. Like these words are not allowed. These words are fine. Like you can't use this type of word combination, but you can use this other one, which means exactly the same. For me as a European, it just baffles my brain. Like it makes absolutely no sense. People of chat, yes.
In Southern California in the 70s, and I say it constantly.
You do, but yet somehow, Tucker, like, and I guess the thing that you know, you have an hour every night, as you said. Let me, and I want to move on to some other questions.
Okay, don't filibuster me.
Tucker is completely dominating the conversation, right? Like, this is also very important when you have a debate. I can see that Tucker is very experienced because he probably goes into hostile environments all the time and has debates. This gentleman, definitely not. So Tucker looks relaxed. He's laughing. He's making jokes. this guy looks nervous. He's constantly like playing with his piece of paper. He's shaking, he's quivering. Debates, by the way, from my personal opinion, have very little to do with arguments. I know this is shocking, right? Like, it's very surprising. People care more about the way you behave and the composure you have than the arguments you're making. Like, even if you have logic on your side, if you act nervous, if you're angry, if you lose your shit, you lost the debate. Meanwhile, you can say the absolute dumbest thing ever, but as long as if you're charismatic and you have a good delivery, people are going to be like, oh my god, yes, you're so smart. And then there's also like when you have these types of debates that are kind of like cemented, like clear distinctions between political ideologies. Tucker will have his fans and they will say Tucker won no matter what. This guy will have his fans and they will say that this guy won no matter what. This is why I stopped having internet debates, by the way. Like I was asked by Flamenco to go on Stardust channel and talk about should we use the word groomer on internet. And I was thinking, it's like, okay, so there was a panel of, I believe, 5 people discussing whether or not the word groomer should be used. And I was like, okay, well, let's assume that all 5 people would decide that, no, the word groomer is problematic, should never be used. What does that solve? Like, the people will still use it. Completely useless internet debate. And as for, like, should we use it? It's an insult. It doesn't have to be accurate. Like, people use it as a means of ending a debate. It's like people are showing that they're bigots. Like, I don't care about... When you call someone a groomer, it means I don't care about your arguments anymore. I already made my mind. I'm not interested in discussing with you. It's the same way that the left, you know, when they call someone a fascist. It's the same thing. It's an insult. It doesn't mean that you're an adept or you have read the works of Benito Mussolini. It simply means that the person from the left is not interested in having a conversation anymore. They're not interested in talking with you, right? Since when do insults have to be accurate? Like when you call someone a motherfucker. Do they actually have to be like Christian? Or is it like an insult? Like you're trying to offend? I know this is shocking. It's like on the internet, like, oh my god, what do you mean offend? Oh, we're now offend. Yeah, like people do offend. It's like curse words are designed to offend. Like sometimes, in certain situation, you need to offend someone. Like for example, you're walking with your wife and someone spanks her ass. You have to offend. The left probably thinks Tucker lost. We see the same screen, but watch different movies type of perception. Yeah, exactly as I said before. It's all about the team that you're on. But I think like most moderate people watching this, like someone that's not into politics watching this will not conclude that Tucker lost. Like, I mean, he makes sense.
But you know, you are misunderstood perhaps in your view a lot then, both by, as you said, kind of the New York Times, but also you keep having sort of explicit white supremacists who have, you know, on secret message boards who work for you, and you have to, I know this has been very painful for you in some cases.
I've never even met a white supremacist.
You have these folks.
You know, it's kind of funny because progressive journalists have been exposed time and time again with working with not just leftist extremists, but far-right extremists. Like, for example, Sargon of Akkad, right? The infamous, you're all a bunch of white. There were right-wing identitarian politics, which made a compilation of problematic things that Sargon said, and they mailed it to media outlets, who then ran that. I mean, and I don't think it's just with Sargon. I think it happened many times with other people. But it goes to show that, yes, like left-wing journalists are lazy. They don't do the groundwork. They don't do the footwork. But they do have people on social media from the ideological fringes of the political spectrum, both the left and the right, who are willing to do the groundwork for them. So accusing Tucker Carlson of doing what every journalist, like you're just accusing Tucker Carlson of being a journalist, even though apparently he denies having white supremacists on his forums. I have no idea whether or not he does, but I haven't seen any evidence from him. So like where is your evidence? And even then, like, how many people does Tucker Carlson have, and how many white supremacists would be acceptable, right? Because if you have like 1 million of fans, and I'm pretty sure like Tucker has more than a million, like he's got 10 million fans. Of course, like some of them are going to be, he might even have like a fun leftist. Like if you're talking about such a huge number of people, like 10 million, he might even have like an Antifa person that likes Tucker Carlson. I mean, he does talk about certain things that are against crony capitalism, and he talks about certain issues, like for example, people who buy factories and then sell them, and this leads to the entire destruction of small towns which relied on that factory. He talks against people who short sell stuff, right? Like, might be a couple of left-wing extremists that watch Tucker Carlson, doesn't agree with everything he says, but like might like some of the issues he's bringing up. Again, when you have like a fan base of 10 million, surely you're going to have like all sorts of people. And some of them, like it's impossible. I would be shocked if he doesn't.
You have folks who have posted, you have a large number of people, Scott Greer, Blake Neff. I'm just curious why you've been sort of flypaper for these people on your staff.
You're not asking me a question.
That was the question. Why have you been flypaper for these racists?
Deep breath. I've never had a white supremacist work for me. I don't think I've ever talked to a white supremacist. Please let me finish.
And I don't want to fight about labels.
Hold on, slow down. I'm not sure what that means. I know that it's a slur. It's the worst thing one can be. I don't really understand the terms, but let me just say,
you've had to let people go who said objectionable stuff.
Slow down, Ben.
Well, I love how they move the goalpost, right? So it's like, oh, you had white supremacists work for you. I was like, okay, well, where's the evidence? He doesn't have it. So Tucker was like, no, I never had. Oh, but you had people that said objectionable stuff. So now it's a different goalpost. I'm pretty sure every single white supremacist said objectionable stuff, but there are people who aren't white supremacists that said objectionable stuff, right? So, like, in fact, I don't know if there is a single person on the planet that hasn't said objectionable stuff at one point. Unless they're a baby, and they haven't learned how to talk. But the moment you start doing that goo goo gaga, you're on thin ice, mister. The only difference is that you now have social media, and the things that you posted 9 years ago might still be online. But every goddamn person has said objectionable stuff. Don't give me with that shit. It's like, oh, well, no one has it. Especially when the rules keep changing. Like, 7 years ago, if you were singing rap lyrics, it would be fine. Today, I know people who had the British police knock on their doors. For like, there was this case where in the UK, there was this girl who lost a friend, and she posted on his Facebook wall his favorite rap lyrics, which contained the power word, and the police visited her. I mean, that's fucked up in my opinion. There's actually a person at the New York Times got fired. He went on a school trip, was part of like the school thing. I think like he was the father of one of the girls there, and a colleague asked, it's like, okay, so our colleague got suspended for using the power word. And he's like, well, like in a lyric or something? And he actually says the word. He did the incantation. So he got fired from the New York Times. 5 years ago, that would not be a problem. Like, within the context, it's like, well, he wasn't using it against the person or an insult. It's like he was trying to get to the bottom of things so he can assess the morality of the situation. Now you're not allowed in 2022. Who the fuck knows what's going to be not allowed in 2028? So there might be things that you're posting now, which are perfectly okay, but in 2028 they're going to be reprehensible.
I believe that people are not defined by their race, any race, black, white, Asian, pick a race. People are defined, their value derives from A, the fact they were created by God. I believe that, maybe you don't, I do. And B, by what they do, by the choices they make, by who they are. They have agency. They're not, part of some larger group. They're individuals. I believe in the individual. And I say that virtually every night. Now, if you don't hear that...
There's actually a very interesting clip from Reagan, the US president. And he points out how the word the masses is a communist thing because the US didn't use that concept, like the concept of the masses, before him. So yeah, like this whole collective ideology thing, it's like the way the left uses it. Okay, so the way the left uses identity politics is that they think they have nailed down the human experience. So they, like, academically, they figured out what it means to be black. They figured out what it means to be white. And this is why when Kanye West wants to vote for Trump, or you have Diamond and Silk, they will call those as being non-authentic black. Academically, this is like the theory, right? So this is what identity politics means. It means that they figured out academically exactly the type of behavior that people have based on race. This is why they write black with capital B, because it's like a nation, if you will, right? It's like England. You write it with capital E. When they say black with capital B, it's like they're writing like the nature. And they view assimilating, in other words, the melting pot, they view it as, and I'm not kidding, like academically they call it black genocide, because like you're erasing the culture and you're putting it in the melting pot in order to create something new. So I guess like if you go back in time, when you have various people from Europe going to US, like you have the Irish and the Germans and the Italians, and you're forcing them to learn English and pledge allegiance to the flag and call themselves American, by the same logic, you would have to say that, well, you're genociding. But in reality, you're not. However, they view that as fine because they do not think that German and Italian are different cultures. Like, they view them as white. They're identical. They have the same experience. And meanwhile, in Europe, you had World War I and World War II. Like, World War I was precisely because of nationalism, like hyper-nationalism. Where you had like different nations having such different interests that they didn't collaborate with each other. I mean, I would have to make another video going into the details of why World War I happened, but it was basically like at one point, especially towards the end of the World War I, where in Germany, for example, the parliament wanted to sue for peace because they were like, okay, the losses are too big. We're not winning anything. Like, let's just calm down. And the generals didn't want to because of nationalism. Like, no, like the fatherland has bled so much. We need to blah, blah, blah. We're the German, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, but what I'm going with this is that in America, you didn't have this mindset of the masses that comes from fascism, communism, right? It's every individual is sacred, and by protecting the rights of every individual and holding individuals responsible, by doing this at a micro scale, you do it at a macro scale as well. Like if every individual matters, then the collective also matters. But if the collective matters, then the individual doesn't necessarily matter. So, for example, Stalin can say, all right, well, we promised our soldiers free housing. Let's starve the Ukrainians, and then we get empty buildings and we can give it to our soldiers, right? Because, like, the individuals aren't important. The group is, right? So preserving the harmony of the group, keeping people from rebelling, keeping people happy. It's kind of like the concept in the military. The military is collectivist. So like in the military, the concept of the mission is above everything, right? So like the mission matters, even if like soldiers lose their lives and blah, blah, blah. No, the mission is the most important. That is collectivism. But again, like the military should be collectivist by its very nature. But I wouldn't want a country that's run as the military. So this is what President Reagan was saying, that the masses is a new concept in the American mindset. Because it is. And this is what Tucker Carlson is against. Is I know he doesn't believe in collective guilt or guilt by association. And by the way, there are countries that do believe in collective guilt or blood guilt. For example, in North Korea, if one person flees the country, his family gets punished. His family didn't commit a crime, but they get punished nonetheless. And if you look at even like Korean history, there were certain crimes that if a person committed, their entire family would get beheaded. So even, I just can't even fathom living in such a society. Like imagine your father commits something and you didn't do anything, right? Like you get beheaded for what your father did. That is so fucked up. Or your son, right? Like you have a son and he does something and then all of your family you get beheaded for what your son did. I mean that is just, but it's a different culture, right? Like it's a different way of doing things, and that is what collectivism is. Like it's you're part of a tribe, and the entire tribe, like your family, is held responsible for what one individual did. This is not America. Like in America, this was never the case, as far as I know. Like please correct me. Yeah, like that race car driver. Like that race car driver had a father which, even before he was born, said the N-word on a radio show. So the race car driver gets kicked out from his sponsorship. He never said the N-word, never did anything, right? That is blood guilt. The entire concept of reparations and other things, like that is blood guilt.
Or if you, for whatever reason, want to claim that I'm some racist, I don't know what to say to you. I'm stating my sincere views as reflected in my personal life and my professional life as clearly as I can.
Do you feel that in your own career you've been kind of discriminated against as a white Protestant?
No.
And I ask in part because I had been told.
I guess it depends where you're at, right? Like if you're a white Protestant amongst white Protestants, you're not going to be discriminated. But if you're like a university in California, you might. The opposite is true, right? Like if you have a progressive individual from California and you put him in a American small village where everyone is a white Protestant, he's going to get discriminated against. I mean, if you have an ideology that is so incompatible with another, like you have one that's based on atheism, collective guilt and all of that other shit, and you're being placed in one that's very religious, yeah, you're going to be discriminated. With Tucker, I don't think he's going to be discriminated at Fox News. But, well, with Tucker, like, he's so famous that even CNN probably wouldn't discriminate against him. Like, if Tucker wanted to join CNN, I have a feeling that they would probably allow him to join. Obviously, he would have to change his program. Again, like, there are people that are so big that they just draw the numbers, and even the left doesn't give a shit anymore. Right? Because at the end of the day, these are business entities. So, for example, Joe Rogan. The reason he didn't get kicked off of Spotify is because he brings in the bacon. But if Joe Rogan was a smaller person like Steven Crowder, he would have been fired long ago.
Told that Roger Ailes, and that you'd sort of at some point expressed that Roger Ailes, the former head of Fox, had a preference for Irish Catholics, and that it kind of held you back. Was that?
I've been held back. And by the way, I can say this sincerely, if I could, that I've never in my life been unhappy except because of self-pity. Self-pity is, I'm speaking for myself, but I think it's true for most people. self-pity is the root of misery. And so I really try not to feel self-pity. I have no grounds for it anyway. I've had a wonderful life. I have an unusually happy family. I live where I want. I say what I want. You know, I'm blessed, unlike a lot of journalists who are leading miserable lives. So, I don't feel sorry for myself.
Oh, shit. Oh, my fuck. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. I mean, look, I felt it from here. I felt it from here. That was, oh my God, Tucker. Holy fucking shit. That was the holy hand grenade, chat. That was something that, oh. I mean, you know, you can be held back even if you're where Tucker is now. Like in the past, he could have been held back in certain positions, yeah. But again, like when it, like Tucker could be anything, like any identity he wanted. Like he can become a trans woman as long as he still gets the same amount of viewership. No one gives a fuck. Like he's not going to be discriminating. He can start worshiping Satan. As long as he gets the same viewership, people will still hire him, right? Now, if you are a young person who doesn't have a background yet and you haven't made a name for yourself, then you can be discriminated. But, you know, he joined television in a time where you didn't have diversity quotas and stuff like that, so had he been an atheist back then, maybe then he would have been discriminated. Or gay. Like, they used to discriminate based on that. But, you know, he got in early, as they say.
I don't feel I've been discriminated against. But I do believe in fairness. And I don't think you should ever hire someone on the basis of his race or sex. That's grotesque to me. It's a violation of the basic promise of the country, which is we're going to bring people from around the world who may look different, be from different backgrounds, but we're going to treat them all the same, which is to say specifically on the basis of their ability and their virtue, on the choices they make, not on the genes they
Look at how angry he is by rubbing this pencil. He is talking about meritocracy basically, and he is talking about representation. I mean, at this point, this is the major difference between the left and the right.
They have. That's Nazi shit. I'm against that. I'm serious.
Let me ask you about a different subject, which is January 6th. And I think...
Well, no, I kind of like this stuff. You're not responding to me.
No, I'm not responding to you. I'm interviewing you.
Does that sound racist to you? You just suggested I'm a white supremacist.
You know, yeah.
I don't think you're interviewing him. Like, by the way you're reacting and the way you keep interrupting, like, if you're interviewing him, you're just being a poor interviewer. I think you're trying to get that gotcha. I think you're trying to get that little soundbite that Media Matters gets to use to get 5 more advertisers pull away from Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I found that clip disturbing. I think the language of replacement theory, which you've popularized, the language of replacement theory is like specifically the language used by neo-Nazis to recruit people to their cause. It has been, obviously, I'm not suggesting some straight line between words and actions, but it is the phrase that has been used by mass shooters. I wonder if you don't have any compunction.
I mean, what was the guy who assassinated JFK? He was a socialist, wasn't it? Right? So why do you use socialism then? I mean, one of the high-profile assassinations in the U.S. history was done by a socialist. Why don't you apply the logic consistently?
Or regret about popularizing that?
This is why you are considered correctly a propagandist and not a journalist.
Oof. I mean, Tucker, look, I'm feeling the blows. Like, I'm not being the one that's targeted, but, like, I'm feeling them from here.
Because I just explained in detail, with total sincerity, what I believe. You ignored it and invoked mass shooters. So
shit. You know, like, this is why you can tell, and this is why it's healthy, by the way, to have debates with the opposite side, because you know what they're going to throw at you, and you know how to counter it. This guy doesn't have debates with the opposite side. I think Tucker Carlson is probably the first person that he interviews, which is a right-winger. So he's nervous, he's fidgeting. You know, like there might be other people that are much better at, you know, trying to paint Tucker Carlson as a racist. This guy isn't one of them, though. I'm willing to bet you can get YouTubers. You can get Vosh. You can get Vosh with Tucker Carlson. He would have a more likely chance to paint Tucker Carlson as a racist simply because of experience. Simply because this is why it's healthy to debate the opposite side. Meanwhile, the left bunkered down. They stopped interacting. They stopped arguing with the opposite side. Until you get someone like Tucker Carlson that made a name for themselves, or Joe Rogan, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta do something. And they don't know what to do because they have no experience in it.
That's not what you
I
just
asked
did.
you how you felt about it. I actually do want to ask you
Well,
about
how I
something.
feel about Max shooting,
I'd like to ask about. I'd like to ask you about something that actually I think we probably have more common
how
ground
ridiculous you are, and I think it's evident to any fair person watching.
I guess I'm trying to give you an opportunity to respond to.
Yeah, I'm giving you an opportunity to respond. What the fuck are you, the Inquisition? Like, this is how you're feeling. You know, like you're the Inquisitor trying to get to the bottom of the sin. You're not giving him an opportunity. Like, literally, within the first seconds, you interrupted him. And you're so nervous when, like, look at it, you know, like, he's angry. Look at his emotions that he's displaying. He's upset.
Things that have been said and written about you, but let's move to something that I'm really not looking to have a
does this
shouting
sound
match
like racist
with
ideology? And you're like, I'm disturbed by the Media Matters clip for 8 seconds. Like, are you being serious?
And this is where it ends. Yeah. Did it really go that well? Holy shit, Fallen Shadow, 5,000 yen. Here's my troll toll to cross the bridge. Thanks for your work and videos, and sorry about the earlier comments. MD not being reunited, Moldova not being reunited with Romania is a bit of a triggering topic for me. There's many reasons why Moldova isn't getting reunited with Romania. But there is a concern, especially from the Romanian lawmakers, that Moldova would start its own communist party, like the Hungarians did in Transylvania. They start like the Hungarian party. But you could have the possibility of like the Moldavia starting like the Communist Party and then getting into office and shit. My opinion about regarding like Moldavia and Romania uniting, I think it should happen economically first. I think that you should have an open trade zone where, you know, people from Moldavia can come to Romania and just work without any visa, without any ID card or anything like that, and they should just be able to come here and work. We should be able to also open businesses in Moldavia, and once you have like 10 years or more where you have this economical integration, and obviously like the culture exchange would happen, then you probably can think about other steps. But to just simply like tomorrow say, all right, well, Moldova and Romania are united, probably not a good idea for many reasons, but like the political ones are the main. Moldavia could have benefited from the situation right now with Ukraine. And had they united with Romania, they would have joined the European Union and NATO in one fell swoop. So if Moldavia would have had good statesmen and good leadership, they could have just said, all right, well, let's talk with the politicians at Bucharest. Let's see if we can unite, especially, you know, when there was like the whole hysteria. It's like the Russians are into Ukraine and all of that. There were a couple of weeks of confusion. Had they benefited from it, I think there would have been enough political will to make it happen. And you would have managed to not only join NATO and the European Union, but you'd also have the unification with Romania. V wants an EU, but between Romania and Moldavia, yeah, kind of. To be honest, if Moldavia enters the EU, it would be similar like Romania and Moldavia uniting. Because at that point, like, there's no border, there's no... I mean, you wouldn't have any difference, really. So yeah, like, if Moldavia enters the EU, you technically unite with Romania. Countries exist. We can't force them to have open trial. Yeah, but like Moldavia and Romania is a different thing. It's kind of like the difference between I don't know, England and Scotland. You know, not even that. Like it's a lot closer. I guess it's kind of like the United States. You know, like think about one state from the U.S. that's not part of, like used to be part of the Union, but now it's not, and it's still the same people, the same language, the same, well, similar culture, right? Like you would want that state back in the Union. So yeah, I know that you're a candidate for the European Union. You might not get in the first time. The EU, from what I know, is interested in expanding into Africa. They probably don't want to upset Russians. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. What I was thinking it would happen, and I'm actually surprised it didn't, was Ukraine taking Transnistria with Moldova's approval. Because Transnistria, from what I can understand, it's ungovernable by the Moldavians. The Transnistrians themselves just don't accept Moldavian leadership. They might have accepted Ukrainian leadership. And there were troops there that were inconvenient for the Ukrainian army. Because they had to guard the border just in case shenanigans happened. So I was expecting that they would just take Transnistria. You know, it would take them, I don't know, like less than a week to do it. And it would have been a possibility. But I guess that didn't happen. I wish that happened, really. Transnistria being taken away would be a blessing. Do you see? I understand Moldavian politics, even if I'm not in Moldavia. Like, I do... Despite what people think, I do understand not only the politicians in Romania, I do understand the problems that Moldavia is facing with. I do understand the patriotism. Like again, when I say that there's a different culture in Moldavia, I'm mostly pointing to the Russification, which is what Tucker Carlson is talking about. Like Stalin took Moldavians, deported them to Siberia, and got Russians into Moldavia. And the Russians are loyal to Russia. I mean, think about it. You're a peasant, right? And all of a sudden, you're given a nice property, a nice home. Like, of course, you're going to be loyal for that. So the Russians are still loyal to Russia. This is why you have very left-wing and corrupt parties there. Again, Moldavia is the only nation in Europe that voted for communism after communism fell. So it is what it is. V, you're married. Stop shilling for female Romanian migrants. I gotta say, Moldavian women are hot as hell. I think like Moldavian women are probably the hottest women in the entire Europe. I had some at med school. I don't think I ever seen an ugly Moldavian woman. Let me see if I can give you an example. All right. Chat. Okay. These are considered average. These are Moldavian women, chat. Again, I don't think there is a single ugly Moldavian woman in that country. And it's a small country, by the way. It's a small country. And this is what it produces. Naruhodo? Ukrainian women are better. They're not. I gotta say, they're not. Anyway. That's kind of it for the stream. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chats. And hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.